If you spent thousands, sometimes even tens of thousands of dollars on AAU basketball, and you're sitting in the stands watching your son or daughter not play, watching the other players on the team get PT over them, and thinking to yourself, what's going on? You're not crazy. AAU basketball is political. But here's the part most parents don't understand: politics is only a problem when you don't know how to navigate it. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what you can control as a parent, what you can't, and most importantly, how to actually put your son or daughter in a position to win. Now, quick heads up before we dive in, you'll see the script on the screen as we go, and I'll be walking through it with you. I'll mostly be reading from it, but I'll pause at times to expand, share examples, and give you real situations we see all the time with the families that I work with in our program. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Trey Mourning, and I play professionally here in the United States and overseas. And today I work with elite youth basketball players and their families across the country, and I help bridge the gap between having the skills and actually performing in games. We usually work with players between the ages of 12 up to 17. And just so you understand my perspective on this, I had full ride offers to Georgetown, Duke, and Florida. And my freshman year in college, Duke won the national championship. I ended up going to Georgetown. And my senior year in high school, Florida was in the Final Four. And just so you know, I did not play AAU basketball. I did all of this without playing AAU basketball. Remember this, and I'm going to say remember this throughout the video. AAU is not the only path, but understanding how the system works, that matters a whole lot. Families that I typically work with are already investing significantly into their son or daughter's development: travel, flights, hotels on the weekends, tournament entry fees, private trainers, skill development sessions, strength coaches, nutrition, gear, sometimes private school on top of that. When you actually add it up, it's not uncommon for the families I work with to be spending thousands, sometimes even tens of thousands of dollars in a year to help their player be the best they can possibly be on and off the court and ready for that next level of basketball, which a lot of times is college, and maybe even after that, playing professionally. So if that is you, this isn't just a casual conversation. This matters. Let's start with what you can't control. You can't control coaches playing favorites. You can't control what people call daddy ball. Some of the parents in our community call it daddy ball. You can't control team politics. You can't control what the shoe circuits are doing and how many games you're playing and things of that nature. And you can't control pre-existing relationships, buddy-buddy relationships between parents on the team and players who've been with the same coach for years and years and years. If your player comes in there and shakes things up, you can't control the fact that there was a pre-existing relationship before you all got there. And this is where most parents get stuck because they get frustrated at the things they cannot control, right? They sit there frustrated talking about how unfair everything is. You got to cut that shit out. It's not going to work. It's not going to be beneficial for you in the long run. And please remember this: your son or daughter's development does not move forward because something is unfair. Get the fair perspective out of your vocabulary and get it out of your thought process so you can effectively move forward and make a difference in your player's life by seizing the moment and knowing how to navigate those troubled waters. Okay. So now let's talk about what actually matters. And this is what you can control. All right. First and foremost, you can control the environment that they're around. Not every team is the right team. And this is where a lot of parents get it wrong. They chase the best team instead of the right situation. Now, I'll speak to my own college journey. The school that I went to, I absolutely loved academically. I have nothing but great things to say about Georgetown academically and my experience there and my social experience there. That being said, the basketball portion of the experience, which is why I was going to school in the first place, believe it or not, it was very subpar. I didn't get the results that I was looking for in terms of development, opportunity, and things of that matter. And I chose the wrong school for the wrong reasons. Please remember this. You're not looking for the best team. You're looking for the right environment for your son or daughter to grow and be seen. For me at the time, that was the University of Florida. Second, let's talk about impact. At higher levels of the game, playing time is earned through impact. And the real question becomes at this point, is your son or daughter creating enough impact to demand minutes? And this sometimes takes a third party perspective. And this is why I do what I do. I look at the situation objectively and I help you and your player understand where you need to be making the biggest impact on the court in order to make it very hard for your coach to take you out the game. This is where we work smart instead of just working hard. Okay. This is another thing that I want you to remember. Coaches don't play players to be fair. You don't want to be in an environment where things are fair. You want to be in an environment where you're getting the results and getting an opportunity to thrive and excel to the next level and properly develop, right? Coaches are going to play players who help them win. Point blank, period. Best coaches play players who are going to help them win. And it's very important for a young player to understand this at this level. Now, I understand that a lot of programs are focusing on winning. And this is the conversation that I had with some of the parents in our community. And what we talked about specifically is that a lot of programs are caring a lot about winning games when in fact players are meant to develop at this portion of their career. And I know this may sound somewhat contradictory for what it is that I was saying before, but it's really not. This goes down to what I was saying about not looking for the best team, but finding the right environment for your son or daughter to grow and be seen. And I'm going to share a tool that's going to be really effective for you all to put this into perspective in just a bit. Okay. So the third thing that I want you to focus on is how to handle the politics. And politics aren't something you're going to get rid of. You're just going to have to understand how to navigate it. So this is where most parents struggle. Other parents, get on their nerves. There's some crazy sideline behavior. There's weird team dynamics and politics and buddy ball. And maybe they hate your son, they hate your daughter because they're better than them. I have a player in our community now who has a lot of jealousy from his teammates. And another player who she was actually here in South Florida playing. And I got a chance to go see her play. And she was telling me that there's drama, with her team and her teammates not wanting her to succeed and all these things, right? This is real. And I've even seen this for myself at a professional level. My father played 16 years in the NBA. He had a Hall of Fame career. And coming up, I was one of the best players in the state of Florida. I had a lot of people, both here in the state of Florida and elsewhere when I would travel to go to camps, who looked down on me and didn't like me because I was me, because I grew up with resources and opportunities. And maybe that is your player situation. Maybe they're not rough and rugged, and maybe they are rough and rugged, but maybe they didn't grow up in the, roughest environment, and they potentially had a silver spoon in their mouth, but that doesn't mean that they can't grow up to be a badass like myself, I believe. And that doesn't mean that they can't develop a chip on their shoulder now that's going to carry them into the fire and help them really cut their teeth to dominate at this level of basketball and this level of life. And even when they grow up and become college basketball players or professional basketball players, they're going to be able to hold their own and not back down to anybody. So the truth is there are people in these environments who are difficult, simply put. And this is another thing I want you to remember. People will treat you how you allow them to treat you. Very, very, very important. So there was a parent, his name's Danny, and I was actually having a conversation with Danny on our parents huddle. We have a parents huddle every 2 weeks within our program, and we have a varsity family huddle. These are the calls right here. The varsity parent huddle every 2 weeks, and then once a month we have a varsity family huddle where we have both our players and our parents present. And I believe we're on a varsity parent huddle. And one of the things that Danny was mentioning that I thought was really, really helpful, he was talking about a conversation he had with a parent who was essentially talking shit about his son during the game, right? So I was having a conversation with Danny, and I thought it was really interesting because he was talking about this dad in the stands who was essentially talking shit about his son during the game. And his son, Scotty, is an absolute killer. They're based in Denver, Colorado. And Scotty absolutely balled out at this middle school statewide showcase. Players from all over the state coming in. And I don't know if he won the MVP, but I'm sure he was first team. He had 24 in one game, 26 in another game, and 34 in another game. I actually shared a video about the performance, and Danny was actually speaking about it here. So back to that. Danny had heard the dad chirping up once, and he's like, okay, I noticed it. Then the second time he heard something, he's like, okay, I have to address this. And this is something that we teach within our program as to how to address these things. And Danny simply went up to him, cool, calm, and collected after the game. And is like, hey, is there an issue with Scotty? And the dad was like, no, 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 no issue at all. No issue at all. Fast forward at the next practice, the dad actually comes up to Danny and he's like, hey man, like I kind of let some things slip, and I'm sorry for the way that I acted that day. Dad went up to him to apologize. Now I know a lot of you parents out there want to check some of these parents around you, and you just have to do it in the right way. And 9 times out of 10, if you do it the right way and you call a spade, that parent's going to come up to you and be like, hey man, I messed up. I actually had an altercation here in my building where I live here in Miami. It was a guy who beeped at me in the parking garage. Rather than go by him because he yelled at me, I stopped the car, didn't get out, but I rolled the window down and I waited for him to park. And I asked him, like, dude, like, you good? Not to escalate anything, but to simply ask a question, because this is somebody I'm going to be in community with. The same way you all are going to be with the parents you're around for the rest of the season. So you have to address these things. And again, people will treat you the way you allow them to treat you. So this guy says, no, I thought you were going to do this. That's why I beeped at you. And I simply explained to him, no, that's not what I was going to do. I was backing up. And he's like, oh, okay, my bad. Fast forward about a week, I see this guy in the elevator. I don't even recognize him because I'd put it out of mind. And Danny as well, he's focused on practice when this other dad comes up to him. So I don't even recognize this guy. This guy comes up to me in the elevator. He's like, hey man, like, do you drive a white Jeep? And I'm like, yeah, that was me. And he says to me, and still I don't recognize him, he's like, man, that was me in the red car. I'm sorry about what I said. And I took it across the line. I'm like, dude, like, all was forgiven. We're all good. But I squashed that. And now he knows not to address me in that way. The same way the other parent on the team knows to not address Danny or his son Scotty in that way. So that's what I want from you all as parents, to really have the guts, I'll say, to be able to nip things in the bud and keep things a buck, right? So from there, as I was mentioning, people will treat you how you allow them to treat you. And this doesn't mean reacting emotionally. It means having clarity, having boundaries, which is a very, very, very important word. There's actually a book that I recommend to the families within our community, and it's called Boundaries. It's by a gentleman named Henry Cloud and another guy named John Townsend. Amazing books, absolutely changed my life. And it's about handling situations in the right way. And this is what we teach in our program. And please, again, remember this. This is another thing to remember. You don't beat politics emotionally. You beat it positionally. You don't beat politics emotionally. You beat it positionally. Now, you are going to feel emotions. You do feel some type of way. I did feel some type of way when that guy beeped at me and yelled at me out of context in the parking garage. What I did is I reserved myself, and I was able to, control my emotions, not suppress my emotions. Because if you suppress your emotions, it comes out in another way. And we teach all about that within our community for both the players and the parents. But if you and when you control your emotions and hold them down for a moment so you can respond respectfully to the person, also firmly at the same time, things are going to change. You position yourself in a way that is going to allow you to have success in the long run. That's what I want for you as a parent. And that's what I want for your players as well. Okay. So we see this all the time inside our program. As I mentioned, parents dealing with situations just like this. And once they shift how they approach it, everything changes. Not because politics disappear, not because that other parent stopped being a jerk, but because that parent now understands how to navigate that situation. Okay. And this is honestly one of the most powerful parts of what we have built inside our community. And you have parents from all over the country, different teams, different levels, different situations, but no competition between them. I'll just show you inside. This is within our parent forum. The players don't have access to see this. And I won't click in just because of discretion and things of that nature. But, parents are talking about how to help their players speak up and how to deal with freshman coaches and filming games and how to deal with travel basketball, college recruitment. This is one of the greatest discussions that we've had. Danny brought up dealing with social media in terms of posting highlights of the player, like how to navigate that in the recruiting process. There's so much that we discuss here in this community and how to overcome injuries and things like that. There's things that we discuss here in the community. There's also so much more that we discuss on our calls, on the varsity parent huddle and on the varsity family huddle as well. We have another call as well that we have 2 times a week currently for our players called the varsity huddle. So we're talking about all these things in the appropriate situations and making sure that no stone goes unturned. There's also a parent course and a player course that goes over these things in detail so that you all can get the teaching and tutelage that you need at your own time and at your own pace. So another thing to remember is you are no longer guessing. You're learning from other people. Within our space, you are learning from other people who are in the same exact situation as you, and you're not competing with them, which makes it very unique. I know from experience and what it is that you all have told me as parents, the parents I've worked with, that it can be tough having a conversation with some of the other parents that you're around because they're just not, I mean, they're jerks. I mean, one dad may be an asshole and one mom may be, the same. And it's really tough to have conversations with people who are snooty and stuck up. And you put your player in these situations wanting them to succeed. You want help, you want feedback, you want tutelage over a long period of time. And there just isn't a space for that. And we've been able to build that online in the past, just under 2 years. So a lot of parents, this is the first time that they don't feel alone in this process. And I could go through the wins channel and share a lot of wins there and a lot of the client testimonials here on YouTube. Here's one I posted about 2 weeks ago. There's more that I have in the backlog to get up, but I feel like it's more important to share these videos, to be quite honest with you, giving you all the teachings that you need. Another one here, and then more further down the line. Here's Danny and Scotty. Here is another family, and this player, Aiden jumped up, Isaac and his son Aiden jumped up from, I want to say, number 70 to top 30 in the country in his age group. This is Jackson, another player, and his parents. So there's some amazing things, amazing case studies that I'm able to share as time goes on. And across Instagram as well, we share a decent amount of testimonials and case studies from players and parents and things like that. But in terms of long form videos to watch all of that, just go on YouTube and check this out. And you're already on YouTube. So just click the next video. Now, I want to show you something that will tie all of this together and what it is that we've been speaking about. So this is a diagram. And first I'm going to speak about it. And I'm going to go back and talk about the diagram, right? So on one side of the scale, you have competition, and another side of the scale, you have playing time. Every team your son or daughter plays on falls somewhere within this scale. If it's all about competition and no playing time, they're not going to develop. And this was my situation at Georgetown. I had other schools like the University of Florida who were going to give me an opportunity to go out there and play and develop. And this is a team that had proven themselves. They went to the Final Four my senior year of high school, and they made a promise to develop me and give me an opportunity to play on the court. Now, promises can be broken. At the same time, a lot of times, if a coach is bending over backwards to recruit you and you do your research and ask the players who are currently in that program how it is, they're going to tell you how it is and really keep it a buck, right? So if it's about playing time and there's no competition, they're not going to develop much either. Yeah, they're going to get the reps in, but there also needs to be friction in the process, right? The Bible talks about as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another, okay? So remember this, development happens when your son or daughter is both challenged and involved. And that's the balance you're looking for. Not the best team, not the flashiest situation on the shoe circuit, the right environment. And at every level of basketball, there are politics. That's not going to go away. The families who win are the ones who understand how to operate within it. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this graph. And this is something that I drew up for our families in the community. I've done this before. Let's say this is European D1, NBA, WNBA, competition. This is the competition scale, D3, high school. I just use that as an example, right? So we're going to look at, let's say, I'll base it off of NBA minutes. I know there's 48 minutes in an NBA game in terms of regulation. So that's why I put 48 down here. And then the best league is the NBA. So essentially you're playing all the minutes possible in an NBA game and you're at the highest league. Now, if I put your 14-year-old or 13-year-old, let's use Scotty as an example. Scotty's, I want to say 13 or 14, and Scotty's a killer, as I mentioned. Scotty can hold his own against high school players, and a lot of players in our community do that same thing. They play up, and I recommend that they play up. That being said, if the NBA runs that I would go to over the summer and the guys that I would hoop with, if we put Scotty out there on the court, he could still hold his own, to be quite honest with you, just knowing Scotty and how he plays. That being said, if I put him on an NBA court, during the whole entire season, he's not going to be able to hold his own in the same way as he would against players who are maybe in high school or maybe freshmen in college around that area, right? So there's a competition scale and there's a minute scale. So if for some reason you're playing 48 minutes a game, but the competition is super low, that's what I mentioned. You're not necessarily going to grow, right? But if you're not really playing any minutes, and granted, I'll take this with a grain of salt. You all take this with a grain of salt, because I think about this way. If I put Scotty on an NBA court and I allowed him to play, let's say, 4 minutes a game, right? If I allowed him to play 4 minutes a game, he would grow tremendously, not because he's only getting the 4 minutes of playing time, but because he's had that time on the court. We can now come back to the drawing board and I can help him assess that 4 minutes and how he can go and compete against other people. There's also another scale that I drew with here in the community. I actually drew this yesterday, so it's perfect. It's right here. I drew this on Monday, I believe. So let's say a player's in high school, right? This is where he is. This is a league that's better than him, and this is a league that's technically worse than him, okay? You're always going to come back to this level. I don't care who you are, right? There's no way for a high school player who is a senior or a junior in high school to always play with professional athletes. They're going to have to come back and play in the high school season because they're enrolled in a high school, okay? So that's how it's going to have to go. But there are moments where you can play around these players who have better competition, these players who are playing at a higher level, who know more than you. I mean, physically, even say this. Physically, one of the players that I've learned the most from is Trevor Ariza. And I would play against Trevor. He's actually from Miami. I'd play against him in the offseason when I was playing professionally. And I was more physically gifted than Trevor, especially at this point in his career, I'll say. I think he was a better athlete than me overall, but across the board, I was a better athlete than him. I think I was 240, maybe 7% body fat at the time, and I think he maybe had 1 year left to play, or was staying in shape to get an opportunity to play on an NBA team. I think he would just retire shortly after that. But point being, I was more physically gifted and dominant than Trevor at the time. When I went on the court with him, he taught me so much mentally that when I came back to this level, I was able to dominate and do things that I didn't even think I could do before, because I started thinking the game and I started to tap into a different level of my IQ than I had before. And I'll go up the street. I live right around the corner from the University of Miami. I've been up the street before and played against college kids. I'm better than them and I just dominate them, right? At the same time, I'm out on the court working on moves that I hadn't done before. So there's a benefit to going down here and playing at this level, and there's a benefit here, right? I do have to come back and play at this level, right? That being said, this really ties the point home of competition and playing time. So yes, you do need the reps. When I'm thinking about it from your perspective, or your player's perspective as an 8th grader or 7th grader, if they ride the bench the whole entire time, there has to be a point in which they are going to get opportunities to go out there on the court and play. And especially at this level of their life, they need to get reps. They can't just sit on the bench the whole entire time, right? So you need to find a balance. This is what we help parents and players do within the community. We help players and parents find a balance of the right competition level and the right amount of minutes. So let's say this is the highest level of competition that you're going to get, and we're going to get, this is probably not an accurate scale, but let's say we're going to get 30 minutes a game out of the potential 48, right? I go with this rather than all the way up here and 10 minutes a game, because you're going to be able to consistently develop. And yes, there are times where you can hop up here during the summer and the off season, or when the college guys are back in town and hoop with them at the local high school. That's fine. At the same time, you need to find a good place for you to call home and develop consistently in terms of and travel basketball. So that is really to tie it home in terms of the politics piece and what it is you're going to experience and how you can get better in a smart way. So if you are the parent of a serious basketball player and you are already invested in terms of time, energy, and money into this, but you're still trying to figure out how to navigate everything the right way, there's a link below this video. Go ahead and book a call with myself directly, and we'll take a look at the situation. This is really about seeing if I can help. I don't want to take on a client or a family who is not the right fit for the program. So this is really a call to see if it makes sense to even work together. I'm here to help above everything else. And my time is extremely valuable and your time is extremely valuable. And I don't want to waste it. And if it does make sense to work together, I'll show you how we can help given the varsity performance system, the program that we've built over the past just under 2 years to be able to provide these results to 100 plus players and parents over that time frame. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next videos. There's going to be a lot more that is coming down the pipeline, both in terms of client testimonials and teachings similar to this. So take some time to go through the channel, watch the testimonials, the other breakdowns. You'll start to understand exactly how all of this fits together and how we brought success to over 100 players and parents in the past 16 to 18 months alone. And we'll talk soon. Peace.